Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to What is Going Om, for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on Om Times flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandy Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandy Sedgbeer.
Hello. Money. How do you feel when you hear or think about that word? Does your body tense up, contract, pull back? It's a fact that most of us experience fear and stress around money, and we're not aware how much it influences our business, financial, and family life, and our impact in the world. But today's guest can help you transform your fear and stress around money into love, so that you can experience abundance, fulfillment, and create a life of generosity. Sarah McCrum is an author, educator, business innovator, and creator of the innovative Thank You Money program, which is based on the principles of her book, Love Money, Money Loves You. Sarah is the founder of Liberate Humanity, a place for learning and sharing the skills for liberation of the human spirit. And she's the co-originator of Love 2, a group of mutual companies that have created new financial products backed by the regeneration and protection of nature and human quality of life, which have been built from the ground up on the principles of Sarah's book and work. Sarah McCrum joins me now to share why now is the perfect time to transform our consciousness around money and create a new economy, and what is possible when we build our lives, relationships, and businesses based in the spirit of generosity. Sarah McCrum, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Sandy. It's great to be here again.
Talk about money puts many people on the defensive, but you have a very different view of money. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, probably even if some people might have heard this before, it's worth telling very briefly the story of how I got that different attitude about money, because it's not a very regular way, and I think it makes more sense of everything. I was at a very low point financially in my life because I'd had a business that had just gone out of business, and so I literally had no money, and I also had nothing to do, which was very unusual for me. And I found myself one day, I was journaling, and I just found myself writing a message from money. And it was a message that, first of all, said that money is an energy. Somehow we've got it wrong in the way we think about money when we think about it as numbers all the time. But it's really the energy behind the numbers and the notes and the coins. And it also came right out saying, I'd like to tell you to love me. And it's like, all my life, probably love and money were not really supposed to go together. I had a very good, strong Christian grandmother. I don't suppose we ever spoke a word about money in all the ways that she tried to influence me, many of which were very generous and kind in a rather sort of tight way, as it used to be, I think. And so what happened was I found myself in the end writing lots of messages about money and getting this message time and time again, that money is an energy that's actually here to support us. It's an energy that's on our side, and it's not, it's misunderstood when we have this hungry need or fearful need to accumulate it, or to reject it, or to deny it, or to go crazy about it. All those kinds of things that are very human behaviors don't really fit with what money is. So I think that a lot of our financial behavior, maybe practically all of it, is kind of based on a misunderstanding of what money really is. And so it's very forgivable that we do such crazy things around it, but it doesn't, I think, do justice either to money or to ourselves. And I think it's worth having a different understanding of it.
We do need a new understanding. I mean, 2 years ago, just as we were going into lockdown, you and I were at the beginning of creating a 6-month series of conversations about money and how we could change our consciousness around it. And of course, we're now coming out of the other side of the pandemic, and what we're seeing is the huge financial cost of it. What's happening in the world right now? I mean, it's as if, there's been so much money poured into helping people through the crisis that, the coffers are empty. There's not much left, and many people are getting terrified now. But now is also, as you say, the perfect time to transform our consciousness, because now is the time when we really could create a new economy, and we need to. So tell us more about that.
Yes, absolutely. We need to. I was talking to somebody yesterday, actually, who was talking about the capital markets and the way everything works on competition and just the way things are. Very, it's very plausible and very interesting. I was listening to him and I thought, yes, that's true. Everything you're saying is true. Supply and demand, all the stuff that people learn in economics, which I have to say I've never learned. But I also looked at it and said, the problem about it is that has also created a world that is the world we're in, where it doesn't work for most people. We do feel as though money's against us, or we feel like, oh, it works for a few people at the expense of the vast majority. So that's the kind of big end of it. That's the economy end, if you like. And then the small end of it is the personal end of it. I mean, I've actually long known since I wrote the book, which is 11 years ago now, I realized that it was possible that there would come a time of financial hardship. Usually when there's a transition, there's hardship along the way. And much though I don't want it to be like that, and I believe there are ways that we can prevent the worst of the hardship, I have always felt that it's very important to be prepared for that. And what the book showed me, which is really the energy of money showed me, is that what money is really is, I would call it a wish fulfillment system. That sounds terribly ungrounded, but in a way it's not. It's like, if I have a wish from my heart, something that I just really want, and that can be something, as somebody talked to me yesterday about how my book gave her permission to get new carpets and not think that that was a really terrible thing to do, or rather immoral. It might be a wish for new carpets, but in a difficult time, it might be a wish for something for your kids. Literally, people are talking about shortages of food and things like that. So it might be a wish for something really basic and everyday that we've taken for granted. Or it might be a wish to be able to get somewhere to see your aging parent. Who knows what it is? But if we have a wish for something and we understand the kind of, almost like the mechanism of this energy, it's the energy of fulfillment of those wishes. The problem is, because of the way we've learnt about money and about our own wishes, we've often learnt to suppress them and cage them in all kinds of conditions. So we say things like, I'd love to go and see my mum who's wherever she is, and it seems really difficult to travel, or I can't afford it, so I can't. And then we block all the flow of the energy. So at the personal level, we really need to understand what money is and how it works, so that we can connect our wishes with solutions. And in a time when money supply appears to be short, I mean, money isn't like that. It's a complete misunderstanding of money to think that the coffers are empty. It doesn't work. All that money's in circulation. It needs to circulate. But in a time when people believe that it's short, it might not always be, I want the big financial thing. It might be, I want the small thing that's going to make my life work. I want to connect with a person. I want to meet somebody. I want an opportunity. And for some people, it's the time when they find huge opportunities where other people aren't looking. So we must remember that times when everyone's in a panic are the times when great new ideas are born. This is the seeding ground of the new economy, which means new ways of doing business, new ways of connecting with each other, new ways of contributing to each other's good. To, really, that's what business is about. It's about creating more goodness and beauty and well-being in the world, fundamentally.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that in those 2 years, so many people have changed their mindset on so many things. We're seeing so many people who weren't able to go to work and now saying, I don't want to go back to work. The kind of work I'm going to do, I can do something that takes less of my time, but I enjoy more, and I'll earn less money, and I won't mind earning less money because I won't have to spend so much on train fares and commuting and all of those things. So now really, and astrologically, we're supported with the astrology saying that now this is it. This is it. This is the time when we actually have everything on our side to be able to make these massive, massive transitions that we need to make. I think you said that, when you felt the energy of 2022, that you felt there was just so much potential here.
It feels, I've always looked at things a bit more through the Chinese astrological system, which I'm not expert in at all, but that's been the lens that I've had. And it's an incredibly dynamic year. And I can feel in the energy, things happen very fast this year. And we've come out of a very, very slow year. Last year in the Chinese system was an ox year, which is very, like just dragging the plow and plodding through the fields kind of energy. So it was tough, I think, for everybody. This year being a tiger, it's almost like you can feel the spring in it. You can feel that dynamic power where just like that, things can happen. And I'm seeing that. It's like, and whether it's the astrology or the evolution doesn't really matter, but it's almost just like the layers are thinner. And so we can meet more directly with the energy and our filters from our mind and from our expectations and our background and our education. All of those filters have got thinner, so that we're less sort of edited. I think we're more raw, and then action and change happens more directly. So yes, I actually feel that this year particularly, I don't think we'll see so much of the change this year, but I believe that all the seeds will be sown. The significant seeds will be sown this year, and then we'll see the growing of those, the germinating, and then the growing of those over maybe the next decade.
The laying of the groundwork. I think we've seen a number of things happen, this year and over the last couple of years, where people have said that it's like the last straw. They're no longer going to tolerate some of the iniquities in the world. It's unnecessary. How many years have we had rock concerts raising money for, countries that are having a difficult time? What happened to all that money? It never changed anything. And
well, actually, I want to tell you a story there. Because many of us will remember when it was Feed the World, and Bono and all of that more than 30 years ago. But for those of us who are old enough, that made a really strong impression. Interestingly, that was in the Tigray Valley of Ethiopia. After that, all the people I guess all the adults, maybe the kids as well, in that area, something like 996,000 families gave 40 days a year to regenerate the land there. And they turned that the Tigray Valley, into a place that grows food, that has tree cover again, where animals can thrive again, and where there's a balance in the system. Before, probably what had happened is that animals, goats and things had eaten everything. The trees had all gone. It had just become really bare and therefore very prone to famine. That is absolutely not true anymore. It's like our picture is completely wrong. So things have changed. There's a civil war there now, which is another story and very tragic, I think, in an area where so much good has been done. But part of the problem is we don't hear those stories. We hear the drama stories. That's such an incredible thing to have happened. 996,000 families. I mean, can you imagine the organization it takes to get all of those people to not only volunteer their time, but learn how to, what they did, they just grew the stumps back that were in the land already. They stopped the animals grazing them and they let the stumps grow back, so the trees grew back, so that you've got shade and then you have water, and then you get fertility, and then you can grow things, and then you get economy, so people have more money. It's like the most remarkable thing. So to me, these are the stories from which we form the new economy. They've created a
Yes.
new economy in their world, and more of those will shape what we can do, what we know that we're capable of.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot to change a mindset. But we've had a lot. They had a lot. They had a
They
lot
had
to
a lot,
deal
and we
with.
we
They
don't
were ready
really
for
want
it.
Yeah, we don't really want to have to starve to change a mindset. That was a
Yeah.
tragedy that probably sprung that change. For me, my wish is that we don't have to have that level. Okay, we've experienced a tough time, and it's been much tougher in some countries than others. We don't even hear about the countries. Like, I've come across places where people were under military lockdown and they were having to I think in the Philippines, they were having to show their papers for every block that you walked on the street. You'd have to show your papers to the military to be able to go shopping, stuff like that. We don't hear about those stories, but we've had a tough time that, when we really look back on it and we look at the real numbers and things, was probably not as tough as we made it out. And it would be nice that would be the stimulus for us to send, and it is clearly becoming it. And there is this sense, and it's very difficult to judge, but there is the sense that it's not enough, and we need to do more. I think we need to have the courage to do what we know in our hearts is right,
Yes.
and not be swayed all the time by what all our friends are doing or what everyone else says is normal. And that's as much personal as it is in business, as it is in government. We need people with the courage to do what's right.
But we are seeing so much of that. I mean, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if we had, a war in Ukraine, I don't know how many people would have stood up and actually said, no, this isn't right. But now people are much more comfortable with doing what is right, with standing up for what is right, and, making their feelings known around it. I think that, one of the things we need, and this is what I love about your book so much, is, we need somebody to dismantle for us the arguments that we've all been conditioned, to keep bringing out all the time about money and, what money is, what it represents. I mean, you said to me a few days ago that you found that most people who really care about the future don't want to talk about money because they're terrified that the associations, money itself will corrupt their beautiful idea or vision. I mean, how
Yes.
skewed is that?
Yes. I mean, that, for me, that's very sad in a way, because there are people who have really great ideas and solutions for how we can organize ourselves better as a society, how we can treat each other better. The business people will generally be a bit better, but even there, I think we have a society where we have such a conflict around money and doing good, that most of the people I know who have any kind of spiritual approach to solving problems for the future, and many, many of the people who want to solve problems do have a spiritual approach to it. They have a kind of ethical inner imperative: I must contribute. And yes, literally money. I've been in situations with lots of them where you can see that money is a topic we don't even want to talk about. It's like, it's not even interesting. And I know that there are people in that room who literally are living on the edge of poverty. It's not like they're doing okay. They are right on the edge. And then there's this kind of sense of virtue that grows up. It's like, I'm a good person because I'm poor and I'm doing the thing that I believe in. But to me, that's simply a misunderstanding of money. If you understood that money is an energy of love and generosity that connects us together and enables us to share our contribution, you would say, I welcome it because it will enable me to do so much more. It's simply at a very simple level, it's such an empowering and beautiful energy. I mean, it's you can feel it once you get used to it, and when they can feel it, it's like, oh my goodness, it's like a really beautiful friend, and it's a friend who doesn't abandon you. It's a relationship, and I think we've seen it as something cold and hard and external, and it's actually really soft and warm and powerful in many ways, and something we can relate with, and we continue to relate with for our whole life. Money is not going to walk out of our life. It's always part of it. So yes, if you abandon that, you actually abandon your own power to create change. If you hear some very noisy birds in the background, the kookaburras have just decided to wake up. It's very early morning here, and they are laughing like crazy.
I can hear them. I can hear them. Well, if you hear any noise in the background, it's about half a dozen boys playing football in the garden.
Can't hear them.
Good, good. One of the things is, I mean, I would say that if you look at the narrative in the media at the moment, certainly in England, this is true. It's nothing but, oh, you're going to suffer financially. Oh, the petrol's gone up. Oh, the energy is going up. This is going up. That's going up. Every family is going to be paying far more for all their bills. Gird your loins, be prepared. You're in for a hard time. And people are thinking about this message.
I actually
and
think
it's
people
just
love it
feeding the
in a
whole
way.
thing,
They
that
love
money.
the drama.
Yes, exactly. But it's also, it's disempowering.
Yeah.
It's completely disempowering.
It's very disempowering because it's based on a misunderstanding of what money is. Money, look, just think about it at a really, really basic level, like a stupid level. And look, this is not an economist, and probably an economist would come along and say, oh, Sarah, that's not the right thing. But let's play the game for a moment. They pumped all that money into the economy. So where did it go? It's like, has it disappeared? It's like, that's nonsense. If people contribute more to each other, more money circulates and we all feel richer. If people are told you're going to have a really tough time, everyone stops spending money, everyone gets really scared, it doesn't circulate, and then we feel really poor. But the money didn't I know it was made out of thin air, but and look, there's all stuff about inflation and how it works and management of debt and things like that. But fundamentally, at a really simple level, and I always give this example, if I pass you £100 and you pass it on to somebody else, I get something, you get something, the next person gets something, the next person gets something. And there's flow of that energy between us because we're not afraid, we're creative and contributing and helping each other and creating value for each other. Then at the most basic level, without all the manipulation up behind the scenes, we are in a kind of economic flow. And that's one of the fundamental roles of money in our society, is to enable that.
Well, and it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, money is at the heart of everything in our society, our survival, how we live our lives. So how we think about it and what we do with it really does matter. You would think that because it plays such a pivotal role, we would love it more. We would appreciate it more. We would value it more. But we don't.
Well, it's a funny thing because the way I look at this is I realize that we are naturally attracted towards abundance. And that's why people go so crazy around money, because it represents abundance to them. So I think it's like joy. We're naturally attracted to joy and to freedom and to all kinds of things. But because we have these really strange beliefs around money and we've been taught that it will corrupt us, we're terrified of it at the same time. And so you have this, and it's not the only area where we have this dilemma, but you have this thing which you're naturally drawn towards. Your soul even understands abundance. It's like, that is where abundance lives almost. And yet that's dangerous to your soul. So what do you do with yourself when a thing that you naturally want is said or could possibly corrupt you, ruin you, destroy you, stop you from going to heaven or whatever it is? It's like, it's so distorting, I think, that we then get these really weird mindsets. So you get some people who just adopt poverty and don't even realize they're doing it, and will be shocked and probably think that I was being incredibly dismissive or rude to them in a way for saying that. But it becomes a thing of pride in a way, and I see this often. And then you get people who have a warped attraction to money where it becomes an obsession. It's not the money that's doing that. But I think when you have such a mixed up experience of it from the day you're born, more or less, whatever your experience is, I'm not surprised that it comes out like that. And so one of the messages that I want to give really is to give people permission to allow abundance and generosity, which includes generosity to yourself, to be your natural state, to say that's actually how we are. That's what a human being is. We live in this abundant world, and we experience abundance inside ourselves if we give ourselves permission, and there is nothing wrong with it. It's actually beautiful, and you will know it's beautiful when you feel it. You couldn't possibly doubt it. So please don't shut that down.
No, I think we are meant to expand and evolve. And if we shut down and hold on to what we've got through fear, then where do you go from that? It's entropy, it's stagnation and entropy, not expansion. Now,
Yes.
I know that you have recently relaunched your book. You've revised it, you've updated it, and you've relaunched it. And in the process of going back over your book, you have had some new understandings of some of the material there that you realized you didn't fully grasp. I want to talk about that in a minute. We're going to take a brief break, but when we come back, I'd like to know what new things have you discovered? So, I'm Sandy.
Om Times TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back. Sarah, let's talk about the new revised edition of your book and what you've noticed, the directions that you hadn't fully understood before when you wrote it the first time round.
It's actually, at one level, it's been a continuous revelation, this book. For when I started out, it was pretty much how to save myself from absolutely zero money and no connection with money. But when I got this kind of feeling like I have to relaunch it. And I didn't really know why. I knew that I'd never launched it in the first place, but it just was such a strong thing. I have to do it. And I went through a real process with that. And, fundamentally what happened was somebody actually said to me one day, she said, Sarah, your book it's like it comes across as self-help, and it's time for you to step into the new paradigm. And here was I was kind of thinking, well, I'm really in the new paradigm, but actually she sort of called me out and said it's much more than self-help. It doesn't deny the self-help aspect of it, because we all need to help ourselves, so to speak, but it's actually really speaking into the new economy. And for example, if you look at the conversation we had a couple of years ago, we didn't really talk in that way. It was very much about your personal relationship with money. So I think one of the big changes is this connection between the personal and the public. They're fractally the same thing. So we so easily think, well, the government needs to sort out the money system, or the banking system is corrupt, so how can I possibly have it, that's against me, that doesn't work for me, therefore I'm powerless. That's not true. It's from people, it's from you and me and the people we know, that these kinds of changes really start. And the banking system will reflect that ultimately, as will everything else, if we actually stand for better values in our relationship with money. So that was really important. The other thing that's been really interesting, not only through the launch, but really through the last year or two, I've been designing and have now launched a new business that's based on the principles of this book, that's called Love To. What's so fascinating is that as we've worked, like it's taken us 5 years, because it's so difficult to change the way you think and feel about things that are so embedded in our society. And maybe to do it personally is one thing, but to do it at a business level where your whole sense of value is different, it takes a lot of it's like you have to grind your gears in a different direction almost. What I realized is all the instructions, even for creating and shaping a global business and a game-changing business, are somehow embedded in the book, and I literally could not see them when I wrote it and when I read it a few years ago. So I added a few chapters at the end for business. I thought, okay, I want to make this really relevant to business. So I got money to speak to me some more. And the chapters were so simple, and we're kind of saying, you might think this book isn't really about business, but it's all about business. So go and read it again. And it made business feel like something that's simple and attractive and based on values that we want to relate to. It's like, oh, I would love my business to be like that. And many successful business people might look at that and say, oh, come on, that's ridiculous. This is how business works. It's a game, and the capital markets and all of that. But actually, I really would challenge any business owner to think about what would happen if your business was really founded on love, and founded on abundance, not scarcity, and generosity, which doesn't mean giving everything away. It's generosity to yourself, to your team, to your clients, to your shareholders, whoever you interact with, and nature, the principles of nature. What would your business look like if it was like that? And would it possibly be a better business? And is it even possible that it would actually be a more successful business, and successful in a holistic way? So it's successful in well-being, and it's successful in a whole lot of different dimensions, and not only the single vertical of money. So all of that's kind of embedded in the book, but it reveals itself over time. You come back to it and it's like, oh, wow, I could do it like this. But I never saw that before.
So, I mean, you're doing that. You're doing it in your new business. So tell me, what does it look like and feel like?
Oh, that's actually a really big question. My friend, who is my co-originator of this business, which is called Love To, my friend Tim, a little more than 5 years ago, we'd had a dialogue. He talked about money. There's a lot of money available in the world to invest into sustainability, into the environment, well-being and things like that. And it wasn't being invested because there were no businesses or projects that really met the requirements of the financial markets. And he was also talking about climate change. And it was kind of a bit like panic, hottest temperature, climate change. What are we going to do? And I come along with 30 years of experience of learning about healing and energy. And I thought, well, the money side's really interesting. I didn't know there was all that money that's literally available to be invested in the kind of things that you and I care about, and it's not finding anywhere to go. And I looked at it and I thought, if you panic like that, it doesn't matter what you do, it won't work. Because I know from years of natural healing that if you panic about your health, all you're doing is making yourself worse. And I know that the people who focus on being healthy are the ones who get the fastest results, and they let the body more or less take care of itself. And the ones who spend their whole time looking at the symptoms and focusing on what's wrong, I can teach them to heal, but it will probably take 10 times longer. So I said to him, look, this panic's never going to work. I love your idea, but it's not going to work. And he came up with an idea a couple of weeks later, which was called Love To. And that's what it's emerged into. And the thing that is so different, there are a few things. One is that the way we've designed the business, everyone's on the same side. So we're all in it together. We don't have that sense of competing against, so that, for example, in many businesses, the shareholders' interests may actually compete with the client's interests. So prices get pushed down to make it more profitable for the shareholders because they have to serve their shareholders. And then that's detrimental to the team, probably, and detrimental to the clients, and could be detrimental also to the environment. So we have it where we have to serve our members because we use a mutual company structure, which is a form of cooperative structure. A big investor can be a member. A person who improves the land, regenerates their farm, can be a member, and they both have an equal vote. The big investor isn't more powerful because they've got more money, because money's not the only thing. Like the people who regenerate the land, they create the value. They're just as important as the people with the money. So everyone's a member. And therefore, if the value of what we're doing goes up, we all go up together. And if it goes down, we're all motivated from the same place to make things better, because none of us is pitted against anybody else. We have a fundamental principle of no againstness. It's very difficult to find a better way of expressing it. But if you don't put yourself against anybody, you don't have enemies, it's actually a very different way of approaching things. So that's one thing that I think is very fundamental. We're all in this together and we're serving ourselves and each other. It's not we're serving them and therefore we have to make ourselves poor. We're all served in the same bowl, so to speak, which is really a remarkable thing when you think about it.
Well, it is, isn't it? I mean, we all complain about certain industries and, costs are rising in those industries. And often it is because they've got shareholders, and the shareholders have to continue to make, earn dividends every single year. Yeah, and every single year they need to go up,
Yeah, and it's the duty of the company to serve their shareholders. I mean, I think they can be short-sighted because it doesn't really serve any shareholders to destroy the environment, for example. But it is precisely from that environment that those kinds of things happen.
How might that translate in a very small business, or even, running the family? I mean, somebody, a mother is a business person, she's
Absolutely.
paying the bills and she's, taking care of the family and seeing how the money gets shared out, etc. How would that translate at that level?
Well, I think actually the other fundamental thing we've done, which is probably really relevant to this question, is we've looked at what we value and how we value things. And so we looked at, to take a really simple example, in our current economy, a tree that is dead is valuable. You can put a price on it. And a tree that is alive is free. It's kind of really interesting. I think a lot about the mother or the parent who takes care of their children and maybe has to do a job or 2 jobs or 3 jobs sometimes, or maybe both parents have to work in order to do this most important contribution of raising our children, who are our population, who are our future economy as well, and also just the whole well-being and experience of being human and do it under extraordinary pressure. But I look at that and say, those first 7 years, especially, we know, of a child's life are the most important. That's the time when parents are most stretched. The pay is the lowest for the people who care for those children. Like to be a kindergarten teacher or any kind of nursery or whatever it is, whatever the systems are, they're very poorly paid, they're very poorly invested in. And that is, we know, the time when it would be best to invest the most in a child's life. We also look at the regeneration of nature. We know is like the most important priority on our planet. Reducing pollution, regenerating nature, these are absolute fundamentals. It's like if you live in a really dirty house, you must make it clean if you want to be healthy and happy. We have to take care of things. So what happens when you start to revalue things is we started to allocate resources differently. So we then get access to the capital markets, to these, the big amounts of money, but we can say this money goes to the people who do those things. So we're working with farmers at the moment. There are a group of farmers who've been regenerating their land beautifully for 10, 15, 20 years. They will start to become a whole lot wealthier because money will come to them, which will allow them to do more of that regeneration. In a small business, I think, and in a family, I think the starting place is simply to look at, what do you really value? Because if you value time with your children, for example, quality time with your children, you might, in today's environment, say, do I have to do this really, really pressurized job that I don't even like very much? And then have this kind of tearing pain of knowing that in some way I'm sacrificing that time with my children. You may feel you have no choice, and that's where it is. But if you feel you have a choice, you could take that choice based on your values. And that's the beginning. What I hope to see in the future is an economy that values the most valuable and essential activities of life: protecting and regenerating nature, caring for each other, education. There's a whole lot of other things that people do at the moment that are not valued. And to me, they should be valued, and that means rewarded, so that people don't have to make these terrible choices. Like a single mum should not have to, I don't think, in a civilized society, make the kind of choices that so many of them do, which is almost sacrificing their children. And we say, oh, the government should sort it out. But I also don't think it's right that the government comes along and just, I don't know, makes people dependent on it and reduces their resilience. But if we could say what you're doing is really valuable, and doing it better is even more valuable, we can actually not only motivate, but actually reward people for doing that. And then they have choices. They can say, well, I can go and get a job and I'll get paid this much, and I can take care of my children and I'll get paid this much, and maybe I can do both. I don't know, but they have choices. And what I want to see is that money flows where our real values lie. I think we've ended up in denial of our own values.
Absolutely. I mean, there is no reason on earth why anybody should starve these days. And yet there are places, and there are even in England, there's a lot of talk now about children who aren't eating. They're getting no food. More and more people are going to the food bank, I mean, that's a crazy situation. It's
yes. And it's a values, it's a distortion of value, because we all know that's crazy. Everybody knows that's crazy. And then people feel disempowered, and they feel like, well, that's terrible, but what can I do about it? And then you have this, and then, really rich, powerful people, they're busy paying attention to other things, which might be quite legitimate some of the time. They're also providing a lot of services that we rely on every single day. So let's not get into we hate business people. Business people make our world work in many ways. But when we tune into our values, we create better systems. I think the problem is that we have perhaps now come to recognize that the values that we thought were okay are not working. We see it in health because we've seen through at least whatever your position on COVID, I think everyone could agree that there was no focus on health. There was entirely a focus on sickness.
Yes.
And
Yes.
no one talked about how do you get healthy? How do you protect your immune system? And it's so obvious to me that if you want, the first thing you would do is try to make sure that you don't get sick, because that's of course your best defense. It's not talked about. So we've seen it in health, we see it in money, that it's like we've forgotten a little bit, or maybe we're coming to recognize that what seemed like an amazing system has some very deep flaws, and it's time for renewal.
Well, we've got cryptocurrency that's getting an awful lot of attention, and people think of it as a new form of currency, a new form of money. Is it actually any different? Is it something that's going to, change the mindset for the better or not? Or is it just a replacement for what we already have?
I think crypto is a really interesting one. I'm not deeply embedded in it myself. To me, what's interesting about crypto is the distributed nature of it. And the fact that because it's on the blockchain, there's an extent to which it's actually not controllable by governments, literally. They could create their own cryptocurrencies, which they do control, but things like Bitcoin and the ones that are out there cannot actually be controlled by anybody. I do know of people who are not able to convert their crypto into bank currency, their banks refusing to operate with them. So they have these methods, but it still exists. So that's a really interesting thing, because I think it shows us the direction that things are going, the distribution of power. And I can only see that will increase. I cannot see any way that we will continue to centralize power. The powerful institutions and governments may try to continue centralizing power, but the people already have a taste for distributed power, and that's growing like wildfire. So I think that's a really interesting side to it. I think the challenging side to it is that it's based on, like, to me, there's a very kind of cold, hard intellectual reality to Bitcoin as well. It's also not a currency that's in flow at the moment. People are keeping it because they're expecting it to become more valuable, which I think is very likely, especially as centralized systems try to centralize even more, then the decentralized systems will become more valuable. So people are using it almost like a kind of speculative kind of investment at the moment, and kind of riding the drama of the ups and the downs of it. So I don't see it as a solution now, because people are not buying things really with Bitcoin. They keep it. So it's not a currency as such at the moment.
It's not really
become
circulating. Yeah.
I think what's missing for me in Bitcoin, what I know in this energy of money, is the sense of generosity and warmth and the soft side of money. So to me, it's a very yang, kind of masculine kind of currency. And I think we need a currency and a financial system that includes the yin and the yang. So it has this soft, nurturing generosity in it, as well as the hard, we've got the numbers and the calculations, which are clearly necessary.
So anybody listening to this right now, may well agree with everything they're hearing, but where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I start? What advice would you give?
I think you have to start by questioning and asking the question, what is money really? After listening to this, what I hope you would realize is that quite a lot, probably, of what you think about money might not be as accurate as you thought it was. And that starts to make a kind of chink in your consciousness, or at least in your awareness to begin with, and start to ask questions. I actually do really feel that my book, Love Money, Money Loves You, it's a very powerful way to open up that chink wider, because it's like it gives it straight to you. It says, hey, I'm money. I'm not what you thought I was. This is what I actually am. And you could have a relationship with me that actually gives you pleasure and is about enjoyment and relaxation and will work for you financially. It kind of says it straight to you. And I don't think any human being could say that. Like, if I come along and say, this is how it is, and this is what I've learned, it's mediated and it's interesting and people like it. But there's a way in which the book is just so raw and so direct, because it's like straight from this energy of money to you. It's crazy in a way. It's beautiful. It's funny. It's very, very kind of relaxing. People feel a tremendous amount of relief when they read it. So I actually really recommend reading it because of that, because then you will be able to do the thinking for yourself. You'll start to redesign the way you operate around money for yourself. So to me, that is really the best starting point. I think it's really difficult to change your thoughts about something or your actions without changing the knowledge you have about it.
One of the surprising things for me when I first read your book, was I decided to talk to money, and money spoke back to me, and I knew that it wasn't me, because some of the things that I was hearing were really,
Exactly.
they weren't in my consciousness, and yet when you hear it, you go, of course, duh, why didn't I know that already? So I think that's a great thing for people to do, to just pretend, there's your money sitting opposite you, and have a word with it, ask it some questions. I mean, I think one of the questions I asked is, well, why haven't you been around much? Which is probably.
Can you remember what it said?
Something like, I was always there. You just didn't pay any attention to me, or you didn't value me, or something. It was, I was always being told I was too generous, too profligate with my money, and I thought about it, and I thought, yeah. I mean, I thought it was a good thing to be generous, but I wasn't being generous to me.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So you start seeing aspects of it that you hadn't considered before.
Yeah, and many people have the same kind of experience. They start talking to money once they kind of get that this is something you relate with, and it takes on almost like a personality. It becomes an entity. It becomes a thing that they genuinely feel they have a relationship with, and then it's warm. It feels warm. It's not just cold and hard. And I think when you get the warmth in there, that relatability, that feeling like this energy, or whatever you want to call it, really is there for me, because that everyone has that kind of experience, and it speaks in a language that I can understand. And so many of us feel really disenfranchised from the financial world because we don't really resonate with the language of it. Here you'll find a language that you resonate with. Everything it says to you is it's like, oh yeah, that's really obvious.
Yeah. Well, you offer quite a lot of courses. You do a Thank You Money course. I mean, you've helped tens of thousands of people. And I certainly know that since speaking to you 3 years ago, everything, my entire attitude to money has changed, and money in my life has changed. There's been much more of it. So it works. I think, anyone who's thinking, yeah, right, probably what they should do is start talking to money and just see what kind of answers they get. But, I think we have an opportunity now, more than we've ever had before, to start reconsidering some things in our lives, the way we want the future to be for our children. We're at the danger point in so many areas. And money, I think, is central to all of it. So do you really see our whole attitude to money changing? Do you really see, it feels like we've got this opportunity. Do you see evidence of that really being more than a possibility?
I know that this will happen. I don't know that it will be like a revolution. I see it more that actually it's happening often in quite hidden pockets at the moment, but it's happening. And there are new systems coming up, and you know, I'm producing one of them, and I don't think a lot can be seen yet, but if I really tune in deeply, there is no other choice. And I don't, in a funny kind of way, I just don't have any doubt about it. We're on a path. We must do this. We must move forward. We must make it work. And we can and we will. That's really what I feel. So I try to ignore, in a way, if I can't see much going on, I don't worry about it. Just say, just get on, do what you need to do, Sarah, because I know in the process of healing that the results often show up later. But if you give up in the early stage when you can't see anything happening, you give up. And even with you, it took a while before those actual financial results came through.
Yeah.
And that's quite common. So I think the key is to really stand for what you know to be right. And that's what I try to do, is just stand for it and show up every day and keep doing it, even when I can't see anything. And I know from my experience of healing with so many people and my experience with money, I know that that works.
Well, I absolutely believe that, you know, there is a future that works for all of us. You know, there is a way of being in the world, working in the world, moving through it that works for all of us. And really, the simplest thing to say to people is we can make it happen, but it takes each one of us. It takes each one of us. You know, we can give our energy to the negative, or, you know, we can look at something in a different way and say, that's what I want. That's what I'm going to create.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sarah, thank you. You know, the book has been a mainstay in my life ever since I, you know, first received it. And I heartily recommend it to anybody. You know, it doesn't cost you a lot of money at all, but it could really change everything.
Thank you, Sandy.
Oh, you're so welcome. We're out of time now, I'm afraid, but the new updated version of Love Money, Money, Love You is available on Amazon. And for more information about Sarah McCrum and her courses, Creating a New Economy, Thank You Money, and other courses and events, all you have to do is visit sarahmccrum.com. That's it for this week. I'll be back at the same time next week with another edition of What Is Going On. Till then, it's goodbye from me. Goodbye from Sarah.
Goodbye from me.
Thank you.